2, 3, 4. Get up, get on up, get up, get on up, stay on the scene. Get on
Alright,
up.
so it's going to be my review for the movie Get On Up from 2014. I was in the mood for watching something a little more music focused, and I'd known about this movie for a while. I heard some good things, some not great things about the movie, but decided to give it a watch. This is the biographical story of James Brown, and he's a legendary soul funk singer, and I know enough about him. I think I don't know an encyclopedia's worth of information about James Brown in general, but I know the general storyline of him and whatnot. And I just always really like music focused movies like this, biographical movies. So I decided to give it a watch. And just to start, it's directed by Tate Taylor. I haven't seen anything from him, this particular director, but he did The Help in 2011, which is a pretty big hit. And then he just did The Girl on the Train last year, which got kind of so-so reviews, I think. But there's a couple supporting actors, but this is, for all intents and purposes, Chadwick Boseman's movie. He's playing James Brown from, a teenager up until his very, very old age. So he plays him all the way through. And I think Chadwick Boseman first made his name known when he played Jackie Robinson in 42. So that's probably one of his bigger kind of breakout roles. And then, I haven't seen that movie yet, but I saw him in Captain America Civil War just last year. He plays the Black Panther, and he's really good in that. I thought he was one of the best parts of that movie, his portrayal of the Black Panther, and so he was really great in that. I was kind of surprised, because that's what I knew him from, and then seeing him here, he looks really different. He doesn't, he's not like a spitting image of James Brown, but they do a lot of those kind of very minimal prosthetics that make him look more and more like James Brown than you'd expect him to look. So, and I'm not going to go through the whole plot, because basically it's a story of how James Brown grew up in like the rural Georgia when he lived with his aunt in a brothel, and then how he gets into the music, starting with like a group that was supposed to be like a church group, kind of a gospel group, and getting up into being really, really famous, really popular. And it goes through the steps, shows a little bit of his addiction problems later, his dealings with women and all of that kind of stuff. But just some of the other actors I'll mention. So Dan Aykroyd plays his manager, Ben Bart, and then I was kind of interested in his parents are played by Lenny James, who's most recently been portraying Morgan in The Walking Dead. I think he's a really good actor. And Viola Davis plays his mom. That's kind of at the beginning when he's younger. Obviously played by a child actor. And then just a couple other people make appearances, like Craig Robinson from The Office. He shows up as one of his bandmates. And Octavia Spencer plays his aunt at one point. But yeah, I'm not going to get into really the plot itself, but just kind of want to talk about some of the things that kind of worked and some of the things that didn't. It's really all over the place at the beginning, and I didn't like it. It's just like really sporadic, and it starts like in the 70s. He's going, or 60s, 70s. He's going to Vietnam, so yeah, I guess 60s, and jumps back to when he's a kid. And I don't know why they did this. It was really had this really disparate, unconnected timeline at the beginning, and I have no idea why they did it. It doesn't work. It makes it really hard to kind of figure out what part of his life he's at, because for the most part it's Chadwick Boseman, except for when he's a very little kid, it's Chadwick Boseman playing him the whole time from when he's like 17 till like late 50s, so it's not super confusing of like what part of his life it's at, but there's no point in it really. They don't have him set up, being introduced, and then they cut back to a part of his life that it was like referencing before or something, there's just no real reason to jump around so sporadically. And it kind of took me out of it. I just really didn't understand why they were doing that. It evens out later about the second half of the movie. They stopped doing that, thank God. But it makes it even more awkward for why they did it at the beginning because it doesn't work. And they also break the fourth wall a couple times. As James Brown, he breaks the fourth wall and starts talking to the audience, and I don't know why they did that either. It didn't make sense. I guess I just like a straightforward kind of start at point A and at point B. But, I mean, you can go and have flashbacks and whatnot, but the way they do it here, it didn't seem like they're trying to do something crazy and artistic with it either. It just seemed not very well thought out. I didn't like that part at all. It kind of ruined the beginning of the movie. They could have had a much better product if they just went from him being young to older. Instead, it just has this weird kind of jumping thing. I didn't like that. Some of the live performances are so they have good and bad. It's very obvious that Chadwick Boseman's not singing their live recordings of James Brown, and it's very obvious. Sometimes it's a little too obvious. It kind of takes you out of it because of the disconnect. It's like couldn't they have done a little better job of syncing the sound? I didn't like that. A little bit later though, I think the last half of the movie is much better than the first half. Those kind of things are as a little less noticeable, the live performances. And then there's actually someone who's in like the 70s and he's in the the major success of his funk era. Those performances are really good. Kind of remind me of like something like seeing Prince perform live, and they're really energetic and really good. So they had a couple of performances when he sings Get On Up and It's a Man's World. He does those two, and they're really, really good performances actually. So those are probably like the two highlights of the movie, those two songs when he sings them. And a couple other things. I guess overall it's an okay movie, but I don't think they did a very good job at showing his progression as like a musician. They kind of show him a scene here and there when he's doing some of the business dealings, making a new deal with his manager, Ben Bart. Like I mentioned, is played by Dan Aykroyd. He's kind of making a new way to promote his music with DJs and stuff. It really reminded me of like Ray and the movie Ray, when Ray Charles is making new deals to own all of his master tapes and everything like that. Very similar kind of thing happened here. But overall, I didn't think they did a very good job of showing him as a kid being interested in music. And then he joins his first band, and then he gets popular. But I didn't think they showed that very clearly. Could have been done much better, showing him being this really, really kind of iconic and genius musician. I didn't think that came across very well at all, unfortunately, because we all know James Brown is an amazing singer and stuff, and it did a lot for music, and I don't think they got that point across clearly enough, unfortunately. And then like the last song was actually pretty powerful. What was it called? Try Me. It's at the very end, and so one of the main guys in the movie is his bandmate Bobby Bird. He's played by Nelson Ellis, and I recognized him. He's one of the core members of the True Blood series. I think his name's Lafayette in that. So, and he's like the guy. Bobby Bird is the guy that brings James Brown into his band, and that's how he got started. And he's with him throughout his career. And so there's this last song, and James Brown just singing to him, kind of in the audience. And it's really good. It's a pretty powerful ending. So I thought that was good. Like I said, the second half of the movie is good. I think that's when it has all of the really great energetic performances. That powerful one at the very end, so more of an emotional song. And it's just even. It just like makes more sense the way they're progressing the story at the end. And the beginning is just a bit of a mess. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. If it was just the editing, it seems like it's an editing problem. So yeah, that kind of ruined some of the rating for me. Of course, when you're watching this, you can't not think of some of the other major biopic movies, especially like Ray, like I mentioned. That's pretty much the perfect movie. I could watch that movie start to finish pretty much once a week if I wanted to. I watched it a ton when it was on HBO for a long time. That's a great movie. And then there's other movies like Walk the Line, I think is another really well done music biopic. And another really good one is Cadillac Records. It actually shows a couple different musicians starting out. Muddy Waters is one of the main ones. But they'll throw in Chuck Berry and Etta James. Really, really good movie. Really good actors. Adrian Brody is the guy that starts Cadillac Records. I think it's Chess Records. And Jeffrey Wright plays Muddy Waters. Beyonce plays Etta James. That's a really good movie. So it's kind of a couple different artists. But I'm going to give this a 3 out of a 5. I think the second half of the movie kind of saved it. First half is a little all over the place. They needed to go back and rethink the editing. So if you're really interested in James Brown, you don't know much about his career, maybe it'd be a good one to watch. This was actually produced by Mick Jagger. It's actually pretty interesting too. There's a scene where James Brown gets moved from closing a show to being moved because the Rolling Stones are supposed to close. And this is actually produced by Mick Jagger. Been working on it for a while. But it made me want to see, there's actually a documentary called Mr. Dynamite about James Brown. So I want to watch that and see if that's, goes a little more in depth with his career and stuff like that. So, like I said, all over, sporadic beginning, evens out a little bit better towards the end. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Okay, that'll be it.
I feel good.